Every day when you get out of bed, life's standing right there to kick you in the fucking face, man. Could be anything. Could be you get up and you walk downstairs, you got a fucking flat tire and you're late for work and you got this and that. Life is going to throw all kinds of crazy shit at you, right? And you have to be ready for it and you got to fucking deal with it. You can't curl up into a ball. You can't run away from it. You can't hide. You have to take all this shit head on. You have to get up every day when I get up out of bed, I strap up and I'm getting ready for fucking war.
What happens if you achieve the things that you say that you want? What happens if you get there? Just imagine for a second.
And since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something.
The fastest growth periods are often the most miserable. If you want progress, get used to pain. The worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
I think every time there's a birthing, there's also a breaking.
People change when the pain of their circumstances exceeds the fear of finally doing something different. So that's how I think about rock bottom. When you're in that space, you're birthed with a willingness that you didn't have prior. Your rock bottom is what you decide it to be. Because if the elevator's going down, there is no ground level. It can always go further down until you're dead.
What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over.
This will be the story that I will one day tell. And that means the harder it is, the bigger the dragon, the more epic the story, and by consequence, the more epic the hero. And if you think about the difference between winners and losers, winners define themselves by what they made happen, and losers define themselves by what happened to them.
Nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. And a lot of times you have to learn to perform without motivation. You have to learn to perform without purpose. You have to learn to perform a lot of different things. And that's what people think. They think, I need to have this motivation. If you have motivation, that's great. That's some kindling to the fire. All it takes is a little bit of spark and you can burn the whole forest up. But motivation, you have to learn to exist without it. You have to be your best self when you're least motivated. And that's the tricky part about all that shit. Motivation is just a word.
You had to make different choices, and the hardest part about change is not making the same choices the day before, and that means you're going to get uncomfortable. You stop doing the same things, the same habits, sitting on the couch, whatever it was. You didn't have time to complain, that stuff.
Struggle doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It usually means you're on a real one, right? Struggle doesn't mean you're making a mistake. Struggle could mean that you have a lot to learn to get to this goal. If you have something you really value, don't change what you value, change the path to get there. Pain isn't proof of misalignment. It's proof you're growing. It's proof it matters. And ultimately, it reveals to you whether it matters enough.
Fellas, you'll not get there if you quit, if you just say, forget it. I can't be the man that I wanted to be. Well, of course you're not right now. You will not be the man that you want to be until you grow into it. You have to grow into it.
I wanted to hit obstacles that most people up, including myself, but I didn't waver. I didn't fear. I didn't run away. I just stayed and marinated in the fear, in the suffering. And through that, building Goggins, I will become Goggins when necessary.
You can't create a new personal reality as the same personality. You got to become someone else. That means you got to give up some aspect of those unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that are programmed because we do them so much and think that way.
All that pain, it was confirmation. It was confirmation that I had gone through a crucible and I had figured out another level of David Goggins, a level that I thought was humanly impossible for anybody to do. When I was at mile 70 and shit and all over myself, and I had 30 more miles to go, and I was damn near dead, and I was able to go 31 more miles.
If I'm running on a treadmill and I get to mile 9 and I get complete cramp in one of my legs, and I know I've told myself I'm going to run 10 kilometers today, he goes, I will have to limp the last mile, even if no one's watching, because I can't let the demons in. And if I let the demons in, they'll show up in the 11th round of a championship fight when there's 50,000 people watching me in the audience, and I know deep in my self-story that I'm the type of person that quits when things get hard.
Whenever it feels like the devil is attacking, when he's testing you, it's important to remember that sometimes God's preparation comes packaged as pain. Sometimes God's preparation, it comes packaged as pain. In other words, there is a purpose in your pain. God might be using the pain that we're enduring to do something in us before he does something through us. The pain that we're experiencing may be preparation for the purpose that God has prepared for us.
You'd have to change your personality, which means you'd have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. You'd have to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors and even what you say and modify them. And then you'd have to look at those emotions that keep you anchored to the past and decide if those emotions belong in your future. So most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. We literally have to become someone else.
The fastest growth periods are often the most miserable. If you want progress, get used to pain. The worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. The hardest you've ever worked is the hardest you've ever worked. Every new challenge shows you a new territory you were scared of but survived. Every time you break a new limit, you now know you have the capacity to handle more than you ever did before.
But you have an excuse that only you need to believe. And you believe that excuse, so it excuses you from working harder on the stuff you know you should be doing but aren't. And that work, the work you know you should be doing but aren't, is the opportunity, because that is the work that your competitors also aren't doing.
What the f do you expect? You're not putting in the work. You have to do more. You gotta stop telling yourself that you're doing enough. In life, it's never enough until you feel this overwhelming feeling of shit, man. I'm outworking the crowd. I'm outworking everybody. I'm doing more. It's not until then, once you get there, that's when you know you've done enough. Stay hard.
At the worst possible moment, he will give you the greatest possible opportunity. And it's almost like this year we're being presented as a question. Are we going to label this year by what we buried or by what was born?
Victims see their past as their fate. Champions see their past as their origin story. And so a lot of people are living through their origin story right now, or they're living through the very reason that they'll never be successful, but it could be the exact same situation. And the only difference between either character is the actions they choose to take.
And then life is going to pull you out and it's going to put you on the anvil and it's going to hammer on you some more. And you're going to say, what? Am I done yet? Am I a sword for the ages? No. No, you're not. You're not done yet.
And you should be facing adversity.
You should be.
You should be facing adversity in the midst of change.
It shouldn't be easy.
It should be earned. It should be earned. It should be earned. Because that means you put your time in. And that means that this is how greatness is created, when you show up to create when you don't feel like it. When you sit with yourself and not allow your mind to go to the past and all the problems and all the things and instruct your mind to go to that vision of the future, that's a victory.
I had to invent a guy that didn't exist. I had to invent a guy that can take any pain, any suffering, any kind of judgment, be called nigger, be called whatever the in the world, and be able to stand in the room and say, go fuck yourself. I had to build this callous mind, and I built it through suffering. I built it through downright fucking just crushing myself. It's about gaining control of your mind, putting things back in the proper perspective, and then saying, I really do want to be here, and I'm going to have a bunch of these 1 seconds through this 130-hour journey. And I have to learn to control these, because if I fail one of these 1 seconds, I will not be a SEAL. I will not be a doctor. I will not be a lawyer. I will not be whatever the fuck it is. So that's how important that 1 second decision is. It's all about your mind takes control of you. You have to say, fuck you, I run this.
You have to be willing to delay gratification for an extended period of time and eat glass, and that eating of glass is seeing how many failures you have until you get it right. And this is the difference between small businesses and big businesses, is their willingness to put up with that long period of time of getting the product right. And then once you get it right, you can scale to the moon because you will make more than everyone else on your back end.
We discovered that when you're sitting with yourself and you go past the point where you would normally stop because of your disbelief, you go past that point, that's when the brain changes the most. That's when you're stepping into the unknown.
What does that moment look like for people? Like, what is
that? That moment looks like I want to quit. That moment looks like I want to give up. That's the end of their emotional belief. But if you show up to be a creator in spite of those voices, in spite of the mismanagement of your attention and energy and not having enough time, or feeling, something happened in your day and it caused you to not want to create, the days that you show up anyway, and you remember that's the belief in your future.
I knew I wanted to live a difficult life. I craved a difficult circumstance.
What?
I don't know, but I think you just know it sometimes when you're a kid. I don't want to do anything easy. And that's why when I found stand-up and I became that thing, I was so gratified and comfortable. You know how much difficulty is the right amount for you. Too much is not good, not enough is not good. There's a range that we all seek as humans.
But you'll push it.
I'll
pretty
push
hard,
it.
yeah.
And train it into myself until I built an identity, and this is who I am. And your identity is the strongest force you have. The strongest force in any personality is to stay consistent with your identity. If you think, you're a loser, you find a way to lose. If you're Lance Armstrong and you say your core belief, your identity, not just your belief, is I am a guy that finds the way to victory. Instead of saying it's over, I will find the way, and created Livestrong, and he survived. Identity is the force that controls you. And when you enhance your identity, you enhance your whole life.
So the process of change in the meditative model requires unlearning and relearning, requires breaking the habit of the old self and reinventing a new self. What we say in neuroscience, pruning synaptic connections and sprouting new connections, unfiring and unwiring and refiring and rewiring. Unmemorizing emotions that are stored in the body and then reconditioning the body to a new mind and to a new emotion. No longer signaling the same genes in the same way, but signaling new genes in new ways. Beginning to pull your energy out of the past and beginning to invest your energy into the future.
I haven't even begun to crack what the mind is capable of. And what I start realizing is on the other end of suffering, that's the real growth of life. Because you realize how the mind processes shit.
In fact, the stronger the pain might be an indication of the bigger the purpose that God has on the other side.
And I'm gonna change the name of this thing that was born in pain, but it was born on purpose.
A blade does not become strong. It does not become tempered until it's been through the fire. Until it's been through the fire several times. And this is just your first or second time through the fire. And there's a lot of hammer work that has to take place.
So if you wanted to create a new personal reality, a new life, you would have to change your personality. And the first step in that is becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts, those thoughts that say, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, it's my ex's fault, it's whatever. you know.
It's all X.
Or if you really truly wanted to be a happy person, you would have to stop complaining. You would have to stop blaming. You'd have to stop allowing your environment to control how you're feeling and thinking. And if you truly wanted to become a new personality, you would have to decide that the emotion of lack cannot belong in an abundant person. Oh, this is where the rubber hits the road now.
But when you enjoy your own pain, whenever I have these prolonged moments of suffering that kind of break past what I would consider the normal variance of life, right? It's like, no, this broke through the barrier of shitty. I do have this history of having significantly larger improvements that happen post dip, right? So it's like we kind of get the opportunity to buy the dip for our own negative consequences, and I've bought the dip at almost every time, and it's rewarded me disproportionately.
Stand up, dig in, line up those problems and confront them, face them, fight them. Do not let them bring you down. In fact, let those challenges raise you up. Let them elevate you. Let their demands and their trials make you stronger.
You can believe you're not worthy of a thing and still attain it. You can be adamant that your efforts are going to go badly and still succeed. You can have no self-belief and show up anyway. You'd ever get to. Self-belief is overrated. Generate evidence, says Ryan Holiday. And this resilience of doing good things in spite of you not believing in them or believing that they're going to happen is pretty miraculous.
Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
You're going to do things, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fuck up. You're supposed to learn and then move forward with the understanding of what not to do. And when you move forward, life may get better, it may not, but somewhere along the lines it's going to click. And everything that I went through back here was supposed to happen.
A lot of people, man, how do you do what you do? At the end of the day, I ask myself one question: can I take one more step? And usually the answer is yes. So if you can answer that question and not take another step, that is real failure. That is real quitting.
There's this quote from the ancient Greeks that says, "Live as though all your ancestors were living again through you." I really love that. This sort of, we judge people based on how much life they can tolerate, how much feeling they can deal with and carry and enjoy. And that's something that we should all try and have more of in ourselves, being that person that your younger self wanted as a role model.
What I want to do is change the perspective of which I look at life and see God's hand of purpose even working in the middle of my pain. And I know I can only imagine what some of you are thinking right now, because I feel for you. You're thinking, but you don't know how much I'm hurting. And you don't know how desperate I feel. Maybe the very thing that you dreaded the most is what God might use to develop you in a way that he can only use that. In fact, the stronger the pain might be an indication of the bigger the purpose that God has on the other side.
This is not for you in the first 5 years of doing whatever you're doing. Like, end yourself. That's the job. The job is nose goes against grindstone, sleep is out of the window, the candle gets burned on 3 ends. That's what you're supposed to do.
The only thing that changed was how I approached the situation. I no longer wanted to be a victim of that race, a victim in my mind. I wanted to dominate.
What happens to us is, as we journey along the way, we lose a lot of things. And the temptation is for us to identify with what we lost. And then we start labeling our lives according to those losses. Well, that limits us to what we can receive.
The bigger the monster, the more epic the hero.
Yes, before you win, everyone will ask you why you're working so hard. And after you win, everyone will ask you why you're working so hard. If that doesn't just go to show that most people are not worth listening to.
It's all about your perspective. Be a palace or a prison.
however you want to see it right now. That, they're still doing it. That kid, time of their life, and we're in the exact same water. Just change your mindset. This is all part of the process, and if you want to wear that shiny gold thing on your chest, you must do this. Just do it.
Tools, your life was basically the perfect grounds for training for where you need to go in your life. All the beatings, all the bullying, all the, you going through learning disabilities, all the struggles. It was the absolute perfect training ground for you to go to where you need to go. And that's how I started looking at my life versus woe is me, poopy pants, kick a rock down the street mentality. It was, God just hooked you right the up. He hooked you right up, man, with the perfect place. You were training for the first 18, 19, 20, you were training for this stuff, man. You had the advantage of everybody else versus, my God, they're so above me. They came from a great family. Mom and dad love them. They didn't have to learn, they didn't stutter, they didn't struggle. No, man, your struggle is what made you who you are now.
It has to be worth it, right? I have to make this worth it, right? Because this sucks. So what can I learn from this? What can I be better from this as a result? And so obviously there's things that I've been working on in order.
Don't just look at life from a perspective of pain, but see your pain through a perspective of purpose.
Taking full accountability for your life with all of the deficiencies that you have may be the most painful thing that you do when you look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is my fault. But in saying, this is my fault, those are also the first 2 steps of progress, because it's my fault, not anyone else's, which means it's my responsibility and my action that can change that. And I think that marrying short-term pain with long-term progress is one of the first connections that most people who are on that path have to make.
Tell yourself the truth. If someone calls you fat, they may be bullying you, but you might be fat. Someone calls you dumb, it's mean, but you might be dumb. It's life, man. Take it for what it's worth and change it.
And that terrible feeling when someone does tell you that you're fat, you can use that as fuel.
As fuel, period.
One of the strongest reframes for suffering is that it gives you the opportunity to create evidence of the person who you want to be. And so it's like, I cannot say that I'm the type of man who can withstand hard things without having gone through hard things.
Because at some point, the sorrow or even the regrets, they have been so painful in a way that I was left only with like 2 choices. Number 1, you learned from what went wrong. And number 2, and this is I do think is a very hard part, it's the part of learning to let go by forgiving. Forgiving two areas. In case somebody is involved, you forgive the one that is involved, but foremost, you forgive this one.
Well, if you just sit there and don't do anything, then you suffer and die. So that isn't an option. You have to move forward. You have to move forward towards valued things.
And what that is this. If you do 130 hours, every second you have to win. If you lose 1 fucking second of that 130 hours, you will not be a Navy SEAL. In life, it's the same way. If you lose 1 second, not take a break, if you make a bad decision and just hang it up in that 1 second, you will fucking regret it. You must win every second. You must be in control of your life every second of your life, or you will lose. So that's the biggest thing. Never forget your goals. Many dreams die while suffering. Don't be one of those people whose dreams die.
And I just said, just shut up and let me enjoy this pain. I don't want anything to numb it. I don't want anything right now. Because what I had done was I just, in my mind, and people will take this wrong and take it as wrong as you want to, I don't really care. I had just climbed a mental wall that was amazing. And I didn't want anybody to take that pain away from me at that point, because that was all confirmation.
But the problem is that you have to face what you don't want to face in order to fix it.
Yeah.
And so you look at all the things about yourself that need to be burned off, that need to be dispensed with. And that, man, especially at the beginning, especially if you're screwed up, that may be like 95% of you It just has to go up in flames. And it's painful. Even some of that stuff that you have to burn off doesn't want to die, and it'll scream in agony while you're burning it off. It's not pleasant.
I thought to myself, if I can be at the lowest part in the world, in the sewer, and be able to overcome all this shit, I started using that as power. And I slowly started passing the guys from Harvard, the guys from MIT, the guys who were from great families and shit. I'm like, oh my God, I'm catching up. I had nothing. So I started flipping it and using it as power. I had to invent a guy that can take any pain, any suffering, any kind of judgment, be called nigger, be called whatever the fuck in the world, and be able to stand in the fucking room and say, go fuck yourself. I had to build this callous mind, and I built it through suffering. I built it through downright fucking just crushing myself.
But when you get into those later rounds and fatigue sets in, and then fatigue makes you start to fucking doubt yourself, and then you start to wonder, can I even make it through the rest of this round? And then you start to think, am I gonna fucking die right now? And these kids dig fucking deep, and they just, like you said, all the other shit flies out the window, and now they're just on fucking autopilot to fight and win.
I got something to tell you. You can compete with the top minds in the world if you're willing to armor and callous your fucking mind and outwork them fuckers and dig deep. When most people see four walls, I see a massive empty space.
So if you're not prepared for it, if you don't have any type of heart, you won't last. From where I grew up, heart was everything. And heart was sometimes saying, I don't care if I get my ass whooped. I'm not gonna be a bitch.
The hunger of not being one of those people that's left behind is what makes you successful in the first place.
I like to be in a difficult environment. I don't know why.
Well, because pressure on the system is generally a good thing.
I've just felt instinctively, I'm gonna do better under pressure.
But it drives you. It makes you do things. It's got a positive element. It gives you ambition. It makes you go out and do things. I don't want to stay in adolescence. Don't want to stay in this little cocoon with my mommy and my daddy in my home playing games. I want to go out in the world. I want to conquer. I want to have ambition.
You have to take great pleasure in the fact that no one wants to be where the fuck you're at right now. Great pleasure in that. It most makes, it has to bring a passion out of you. It has to bring something very, very weird out of you, man. Like, people don't really understand what that is. When you're in the worst environment possible, the worst situation possible, and everybody's looking like, God, man, I hope this ends. And you see that. Time slows down and you see that. You're feeling that. Everybody has that look on their face like, God, this gotta go. I don't want to be here anymore.
Everything involves a degree of pain, a degree of practice, a degree of drudgery.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to come easy in life. So skill that you're going to learn is going to involve that. And if you're not connected to it in a deep way like you weren't with music, you're never going to learn fast enough, and you're just going to you're going to burn out too early.
I just know every time I suffered in the training, afterwards, something really good came out of it. Yeah. Same as like every time you face a challenge that was really, really difficult for you, but you still pushed it through somehow. You still were patient and persevered and were consistent and still tried. And this type of challenge for me was a way bigger victory than anything that was easily attained.
When you're growing in a business, it's very painful. When you're stagnating in a business and you're plateaued and you don't know what to do, it's very painful. When you're declining and you also don't know what to do, it's very painful. And so that means that all conditions of reality are painful. And so if pain is a prerequisite for reality, then it means it's just a signal that we are alive. And so in thinking about that, rather than pain as a problem, it is a signal that I'm breathing.
Let the adversity you face today turn you into a better person tomorrow. So in the future, you look back at these struggles and you say to them, thank you. You made me better.
Sun don't stop for nobody, man. Sun don't stop. Sun gonna be up in the morning regardless. that sun is gonna be up in the morning regardless of how I fucking feel and how depressed I am. The sun is gonna fucking shine in the morning, and at nighttime the moon gonna be there, and you gonna look up, these days gonna keep going by. So do you let the days go by and look up and you done wasted a year doing what?
If you are like an artist or creative and you feel frustrated and you feel blocked, that's a good thing, right? That little bit of pain, that little bit of frustration, it's often a signal that you're actually on the verge of turning into the right direction. You know, 'cause it's a signal that things aren't quite working out and you're listening to it.
That the difficult thing that you're going through right now, it's not without purpose. God may have allowed it to strengthen you in a way that only this pain could strengthen you. God works in all things, everything, whatever you're going through right now. This season, God works in all things for the good, according to God's purpose, not according to your pain.